I think we can make a start. We're at 12:30, and let's get going. So welcome to the March webinar. It's 12:30 on the 13th of March, and my name is Rohan Wakefield. Today I'm going to run through some questions that folks have submitted that they would like to be answered. I've got about eight questions today. Things like, what's the market like for juniors? What does a career in software development look like? And what's it like to get a job in a technical space? Information on developing trends and technologies. So there's a number of questions there, and we'll go through them. If you're watching live and you have questions, please feel free to put them in the live chat on the right-hand side of the video, or if you would like, you can click on the link below the video and see the questions that people have asked, and you can add to them as well. So look, I'll start off with the first question on the list, and that is, what is the market like for junior graduates in the sector? Now, we've been around for over 4 years now and graduated over 300 students, and we measure our school on the ability for our graduates to get work. So it's incredibly important for us. So one of the things is us understanding the market, being able to measure the market for our graduates, so that we know what they're getting themselves into. And I personally, and the school, does a lot of work to be able to prepare graduates for the job market. It's hard to perfectly define how many graduates are needed and how many vacancies there are and so on. You will notice that very few jobs are advertised in tech because it's very expensive to advertise. To run a recruitment process, to hire new graduates, it's just expensive. There are a lot of people looking for work, and for companies to be able to run a process like that, it's a very expensive process. So my advice to most of our graduates is to make that efficient and to stand out from the crowd, and that's why we have such a high success rate. I've looked at a number of different analyses of the market, and there are a number of recruitment companies that do analyses. Recruit IT and Absolute IT do reports. There are companies like Orion Health that do some analysis in the market. I know MYOB has done some analysis, and so have Xero. So these are good companies that really want to understand the technical market. And from what we can see, there is a huge talent shortage, but it's at all levels. And what that means for graduates getting into the market is that there is a lack of senior and intermediate talent. Therefore, although there may be a ton of vacancies for graduates, those graduates going into those organizations need mentorship. So we are doing a lot of work with companies on onboarding, on being able to hire our graduates, and on our graduates being able to be resilient in those environments, because there is often a lack of mentorship. So that's why we have such a high success rate, and that's why our employment rate is high, is because our graduates are very resilient. They learn on the job. They need mentorship, but also they can hit the ground running. So in answer to this question, I've taken a bit of a roundabout way and painted quite a perspective on that. I think there is a lot of opportunity for graduate developers, but only if you have the ability to learn, a huge amount of self-motivation and self-drive, the ability to fit into an organization and fit into a team and empathize a lot with those that are around you because they don't have the resilience to handhold you. I think it's incredibly important to be able to go into an organization and give and receive feedback, particularly receive it as you're coming in. So receive that feedback from your colleagues and from your management, so that you can grow, and it's not too, I suppose it's not such a juxtaposition of them having to really give you so much guidance. So being responsive to that feedback and proactive on it. But I think there's a ton of opportunities for graduates out there. the sector has produced a number of articles recently on the lack of talent and the fact that we need to train more people in tech. And forget training lawyers and accountants and these sorts of things. We need folks that are technically capable, that can learn, that are passionate about building, and we need them in our sector fast. But there is complexity there around that mentorship and being able to take on a graduate with responsibility of growing them. But I think Dev Academy does an exceptional job in that. Okay, so the next question is how existing careers and web development can interact. It's a very interesting question. And I think this speaks to the changing environment that we are seeing in our sector. I think I went to a conference recently called the D5 or the D7, and this is the 5 or the 7 most digitally strong nations in the world, and they're talking about the issues that they are facing, and being able to engage as a government with its citizens, but also around the policy of future of work, future of education, future of competitive advantage. All of these sorts of things came up in it as well. And one thing that is very apparent is tech is influencing every sector. It's got its own sector. We can see this, but also we see that some of our biggest tech companies are, Fonterra, Air New Zealand, The Warehouse. They have large tech teams, and they are classical industries and businesses in their own right. Yet they are being driven by the advancement in tech, and their competitive advantage sits within their technical teams. So we see a lot of our graduates going into many environments. They are in tech, they're in technical roles, but they're outside of the tech sector. And I believe that when you measure the amount of work inside the tech sector, someone like TradeMe or Xero, as opposed to those folks that are outside of the sector, somewhere like Air New Zealand or The Warehouse, there are more people out of the tech sector working in tech than there are in the tech sector. So that's very interesting. How do existing careers interact with web development? I think what we're seeing is a change in our environment. Being a lawyer doesn't mean holding exclusivity over information anymore. Being a lawyer is much more of a consultative role, for example. I think we are seeing software replace those things that can be automated. There is no point in training people on things that robots can do. Classically, our education system has been very robotic. It's learnt by rote. It's harnessed knowledge. But knowledge is cheap. Information is cheaper, and it's not about that. We have to grow skills. And what I am seeing is our existing careers and web development. Web development is stripping out anything that can be automated, anything that can be standardized, anything that if you're thinking about our legal tax system and our operational tax system, strip out anything that can be automated, as in this system talks to this system, therefore there's no reason to balance your books, because immediately when you're doing your live transactions within your company, it's going to be talking to Inland Revenue. That program, that system is on the horizon, and there's not much point in thinking about being a bookkeeper in the future. We won't need it. That will be automated. That's something that's very easily automated. However, sitting down with someone and talking to them about how they run their business from a financial perspective as a consultant, I think that's still reasonably safe. So I am seeing the way in which web development interacts in a future context with existing careers is that of automation. It's that of facilitating systems and processes to create efficiencies. But I see a strong need for people to be able to create software solutions in lay terms for your everyday business. I think this is why Dev Academy stands behind these human skills so heavily. They are desperately needed in tech. And I think in every role going ahead, they are the most important skills we must have. So the next question is, can you give us some information about web development trends and technologies? So this is, I geek out on this sort of stuff heavily. Um, I love, I love the the impact technology makes on our world, in many sort of ways. I think one of the ways I obviously that's fairly common is the the um, the technical advancements and things like health tech, in which we can see our software solutions really saving lives. And I think that's a beautiful thing. We've got some amazing companies in New Zealand, like a Ryan Health, Venza Health, um, uh, Fisher and Paykel Healthcare, and so on, is SL Systems. SL Systems or SL Industries, in Dunedin. These are companies that are building hardware and software, depending on what they do, to be able to come into the health sector and create huge innovative leaps. Um, they're fascinating. They're very, very interesting, and they're wonderful places to work. Places that are developing products and services that are at the forefront and that are punching well above their weight. And very, very proud that they are coming from a little country like New Zealand. These are wonderful places to work. I think one common one at the moment that we're hearing about is the impact that blockchain will have, and I'm particularly excited by what the potential in blockchain. I think it's an emerging industry. It's very, very new. I think we all heard about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. That's very different to blockchain. Blockchain has a much wider implication, and I think we're still getting our heads around it. I've been speaking to folks recently who said that blockchains for them is old news. It's about the new wave of what we've learned from blockchain and what is the new things that are going to be built. But it's very, very interesting to see effectively the redesign of information and the redesign of the internet, and what is going to be the impact of private blockchains and private blockchains that form a network of blockchains that do different and specific things. And I'm particularly excited by that. So if you want to have a look at this, you can jump online and start having a search for some of those beyond blockchain sort of technologies, and you'll come across some very interesting stuff there. I think robotics and machine learning is a fascinating thing that we're going to see have huge impact on our manual labour. Everything from building to food prep to obviously driving or driverless cars, self-driving cars and self-driving vehicles. Machine learning and robotics is a fascinating place to work in, and New Zealand has a number of very, very interesting companies in that space, and I think that'll have huge impact. Augmented reality and virtual reality has a huge amount of potential as well. And do bear in mind, these are emerging markets. We are seeing a lot of risk in these companies, and I've recently seen a couple of companies in Wellington that have had quite significant changes because of the emergence of these markets and the fact that they're not established and they haven't got a healthy or a supportive environment for them to build products in. They are definitely emerging and fragmented and immature, so they're high risk. But they're fascinating as well. I mean, they're right at the forefront of innovation. But however, creating a business on the back of that can be really, really tough. So those are a few things that excite me. I get a wonderful opportunity to get exposed to a few of these. Something a bit different might be, and this might blow your mind a bit, is we were recently approached by a couple of folks that were from NASA. And they said, hey, we're taking more photos of Earth than ever before. We've got more satellites up there with very, very high resolution cameras. And the information that we are gathering through these photos is great, but it's raw. It needs to be processed, and we need a new wave of software developers that can interpret this imagery and build the software to interpret this imagery. Can you help us? And this is one example of how excited I am about being a school that operates in the emerging market space is that we can jump on these opportunities and we could effectively build a 500-person team, I believe, that is a very specific, high-end digital team that could process these images. And this is effectively a call center. It's all information coming in, it gets processed, and it goes back out again. And it's a processing center. And wouldn't it be amazing to see some of our rural environments in New Zealand being able to house one of these very high-tech modern call centers and get paid handsomely to do so? Most of your call centers at the moment that are on the phones and so on, I imagine they're around the 30 to 40,000 sort of range as far as the salary. Well, these roles that we're talking about are well into the six figures. These are specialist, high-end sort of roles, and I'm very, very excited about the potential of seeing these roles in New Zealand, but also seeing them in regional New Zealand. I think that's incredibly exciting. So that's a little bit about where I see web development trends and technologies going. Web development, bear in mind, is a way of teaching software development. It's very visual, it's very interactive, and it's a great way to teach software principles. But it's not the only thing you can do with software development. And although we teach web development, it is applicable to software development. So we're not wedded to web. We love engineering, software engineering, and software development, and we teach it using the web. But you can go into many different places. The next question states says, are women more likely to get hired? I think I'm seeing the tech sector identify that diversity is an area that needs to be worked on and really backed. It's not a case of, oh yeah, we've got a problem with diversity, we don't know what to do. I see the tech sector actively pushing this. They are actively taking a stand saying, we are taking active measures to change diversity in our sector. This includes women, Pacifica, Māori, different fields of thought, different ways of thought, creatives, scientists. They're wanting to have a richness of thinking and of demographic and of people. And there are a number of reasons for this. Some obvious ones are, if you have more diverse teams, you are more innovative. If you have more diverse teams, people have more fun. They stay longer. They have a more rich experience. If you have more diverse teams, you have much better software. It meets the market. It's very difficult and not impossible, but hit and miss for me to build software for a Māori community. I'm not Māori. I find it difficult to empathize, and for every desire I may have and every ability I may have to empathize, I will never be Māori. So it's always going to be much more difficult for me to build software in a Māori context. But if I am sitting here with a diverse team behind me and we are building a piece of software that meets a diverse market, then we will do that much better if we are a diverse team. So I'm seeing this more and more. I'm not sure if women are more likely to get hired. I think good people will get hired. I am seeing companies in particular saying that the candidates and the applications that we receive, if we are receiving only 10% female candidates, then something is wrong with the way in which we hire. And I think that's a beautiful way of approaching this problem. The ideal scenario for them is to have a diverse range of CVs to be able to hire the best candidate from. And I think that's imperative, and there's a ton of work to be done. And this is why Dev Academy toes this line, is that we believe that it needs to start with the stories we tell, how we educate, the environments that we create, how we talk about tech, how we talk about STEAM and this area. Do we talk enough about the huge amount of collaboration and fun and creativity of tech, or are we only interested in talking about ninjas and superstars, which only communicate to a small demographic of our population? So I think there is an active impetus to create a more of a level and welcoming environment, but I still think there's a long way to go. So, in your question, are women more likely to get hired? I think not necessarily. I think women are welcomed into the market, as is everyone else. Um, we are very much a white male dominated area, um, but there's an active desire to see that change. And I hope that continues, and I'm sure it will. What is the starting salary for a web developer in New Zealand? So the starting salary, I think that is publicly recorded by some of those bits of research I mentioned before, is between 45 and 48,000. If an EDA grad, it's the average is around 55,000, so it's a bit more than that. But do bear in mind we have career movers, not career starters. So a lot of the folks that come through Dev Academy already have a career behind them. But in that, we are also seeing that our starting salary is increasing over time. So the average starting salary. So it's very common for a salary to start between 50 and 65. And I'd say that's the most common range. But if you've got 10 years experience behind you in another area, it wouldn't be uncommon to start at 75 or even 85. So I've seen a number of those sorts of potential salaries out there. The other thing is the starting salary is one thing, but you can progress in salary bands very, very quickly if you prove yourself. And I have seen some companies rewarding those candidates that do bring a lot and are prepared to work hard. One who I met on Friday just was telling me about how he'd been rewarded for the responsibilities that he'd taken over a couple of jobs and was now on a six-figure salary after a few years in the industry. Now it's an extreme example, but I'm hearing that more and more. I've just heard of another candidate coming back from Australia and being offered a very, very lucrative job in Auckland, only a couple of years in the industry, and close to double their salary since they've started as well, which is very, very exciting for them. Huge amount of responsibility that they've taken on as well, so they haven't just sat back and waited for that. They've really pushed themselves to grow. So, yeah. Can I get a web design job with this program and some nous? We don't train for the output of web design. That's a design training that you'll need. Web design is quite different to software development. Web design is much more about the aesthetic, what the feel and the look and the flow would be like. We're seeing more and more web designers and UI UX experts that can code, and we have had quite a number of EDA graduates who have gone into roles that are on the front end, which is where your UI UX and designers and experienced folks would sit, that can code and that have contributed to the code base, but that have had quite a focus on the user. And we're seeing more and more that web design in itself has changed to mean much more, and it's much more about your user experience and the interaction. Just to be clear, at Dev Academy, you don't learn how to build websites either. Websites are a bit like static sort of brochures. It's like it's the web version of a brochure or an advertisement. We don't do this. We are building functionality. It's much more interactive. You're having an experience. You're clicking buttons. You're having flows. You're inputting data and you're receiving data. This is an interaction, something that you would do with a product like TradeMe or Xero, in which you're actively using a piece of software. It's not just navigating around some information. That's very different. So likewise, design has moved from having nice colors and pictures and layout to having an interaction that works for your user and is intuitive. So no, we don't do web design, but if you've got a design background, then we love those folks with a design background that we give that coding foundation to. They go off into often front-end roles, and they are hugely sought after in the market. So if you've got some design background, or if you just love it and you're thinking about coming here, come and have a chat, because we've seen some people get really good roles post graduation. The next question is, tell me more about the contents of the course, programs you use, types of exercises, etc. Yeah, so the, the course is in two bits. There's phase 0, which is designed to be done remotely. And phase 0 is a preparation. It prepares you for boot camp. You can't get A's in phase 0. There's just a 9 modules of work that will take you at least 6 weeks. Most people are taking 12, so they're taking a little bit each week. And by little bit, I'm meaning 15 to 25 hours, depending on how fast you want to go. And they're taking themselves through some preparation. As I said, we've designed it to be done remotely, so you can do it from anywhere in the world, but you can also do it from our Auckland and Wellington campuses. And that preparation can be done on your own, or it can be done in collaboration with others. But it's really to prepare you for boot camp. The difficulty in phase 0 in that preparation is its lack of structure. Although it's in 9 modules, it's up to you to push yourself through it. And that's where our candidates have the most difficulty, is managing themselves, their time, and having the self-discipline. If you are someone, and be honest with yourself, if you are someone that finds it difficult to get stuff done, then get someone to hold you to account. A friend, family member, or come into Dev Academy so that you know when you're here, you're working. Because you could be a great software developer if you build up that habit. And it is a habit. I lack self-discipline and integrity, or I used to. And I had to teach that to myself, and I still find it difficult. But I've got into that habit of doing the hard stuff first. And once you've got it, it's a huge relief. You know that you can get through your work. So that's a difficult part of phase 0. Bootcamp's different. Bootcamp, you're with us. You're with us 7 days a week. It's a big week. It's a 70-hour week often. So you're doing some long hours. I don't recommend doing more than 70 hours a week because you'll get sick. But we are taking 9 weeks of your life, and you are absolutely dedicating it to us. So you're here with us from 8:30 until 5:30 as a bare minimum, 5 days a week. And then after hours, you're doing a lot of work as well. Now, that doesn't have to happen on site, but I highly recommend that it does. If you've got responsibilities like you're a parent, or you've got actually not many other responsibilities are as important as being a parent, so everything else you need to get off your plate. You can't work during boot camp. You can't do volunteer stuff. You can't do much else other than be a parent if you are one, and do this program. Because we are trying to achieve something that's close to impossible. And if you don't have the time and dedication and push and motivation to do this, then you won't get through it, and you won't graduate with the skills you need. So boot camp is hard. It's long hours. It's pretty full on, but it's really great fun. We've got small cohorts that take you through a very structured curriculum. And the structured curriculum looks like a series of modules of work in which you get introduced to new topics. Lots of Q&A. You'll see a developer using this, and they're live coding, and they're showing you lots and lots of code and how to do this. And you're asking lots of questions with your cohort, and then you're going out and you're being handed these tools. You're having to use these tools in a sandboxed environment. So in a real life setting, it looks like it's not real, it's not live, but what you would expect to see in a commercial environment. And you're having to use these things. You're having to deploy. You're having to write a whole lot of tests. You're having to pair with each other. Lots of pairing and working with each other. Our classrooms are noisy. In fact, they're not classrooms. They're like offices, big open offices, and they are very noisy. And that's because there's a ton of collaboration. There's a ton of arguing and saying, oh, well, I'm doing it this way, and we should do it that way. So there's a lot of interaction with people, but you're using these tools. You're learning by doing. And that's a very important part of what we do. So that happens throughout most of the day. We have good breaks for lunch, and you'll notice that we put on things like yoga. We very much believe in getting the blood going and getting physical. A lot of people go out and play basketball or go to the gym. You don't have to do yoga, but we think it's a great thing we can do in an office environment. We ask you to eat well, sleep well, think about those routines. What's coming into your body is very important for how much your brain can function and how much energy you have. And look, at the end of a week, we have a project at the end of every week, and that's a lot of fun. in which you get to utilize and use the tools that you've learned during the week in a project of your choice. So you come up with that project, you design it, you deliver it, and you present it. And that's, again, a lot of what we do here is heavily involved in the doing. So it's the practical application of what we're doing. We're not interested so much in the theory. That is probably something that the sector can teach you more of than we can, but we will teach you how to learn, how to build those habits. You will do a ton of coding with us, yes, but you will also do a ton of self-reflection on how you learn, how you work with others, so that when you're stepping into a commercial environment, you can hit the ground running. So we teach full stack JavaScript, so Node, React, Redux, Postgres, SQL, SQLite. You will use all of those technologies and a whole lot of other technologies in there as well. I mean, we do test-driven development. We look at functional programming, object-oriented programming, behavior-based programming. We will look at deployment. You'll be using things like GitHub and Kanban boards. You will be going through agile principles. So we use things that you will be using in the sector all the time. Yeah. If you've got specific questions on this, please get in touch with us. It's a big, big question, and the answer could take me an hour. What are some of the projects that students have made on the course? Well, we have a YouTube channel that's got a number of these projects up there. We've just had 2 cohorts graduate last Thursday, and they had 5 projects. All of them were mind-blowing, absolutely exceptional, and massively surpassed any expectations that we had. Such beautiful projects. So we will get those online pretty quickly, but have a look at some of the older ones. We've had amazing personal projects. So there's actually a 3-week personal project that students do after hours. Some of those have absolutely blown us away, and we've got some of those online. End of bootcamp projects are big projects. They're 7-day or 8-day projects done in teams. They are amazing pieces of work, and they form, I suppose, the jewel in your crown that is your portfolio. So everything you do here becomes your portfolio, and they are really important pieces of work. What are some of the cool places that graduates have gone to work at? We've had graduates go to such a variety of places. Just last week, one of our graduates started at Vend, which is such an awesome place to work. They're such a Kiwi company that's absolutely exceptional product. Vend have a point of sale system and a retail software system that's used, I think, in over 100 countries in the world. And yet they started from very sort of a humble position. Vaughan, who started it, is such a lovely, humble sort of person. Has quietly grown this amazing product in Auckland, and and one of our graduates has just started there, and I think she said to us yesterday that it was just meeting the team, very casual, very nice way to sort of come into a very welcoming and healthy environment. So she's looking forward to do that. We've had another graduate in Auckland that's recently started at Rocket Lab as a junior or graduate developer, and they've loved that journey. Such an exciting company doing absolutely groundbreaking stuff. We've had folks start at places like Air New Zealand, at places like Venza Health, Lightbox, Xero, Trade Me in Auckland. Some of the Wellington companies, maybe Flux Federation, Flick, places like Weta, even some of the smaller startups like Publons or places like that. We've had folks work in Montreal, London, Seattle, Sydney, Melbourne, Berlin. People are working all over the world. Some folks are working remotely. They're working for companies in the States or in New Zealand whilst they travel. And that's incredibly exciting to see those folks that have the responsibility and maturity to be able to handle their work, and they've been recognised and given that responsibility to travel and be in charge of their work. There's someone who's been doing this in South America who's just such a wonderful person and an amazing developer that they've been able to travel and do part-time work whilst they take themselves through South America. It's a really good experience. Cool. What is the interview process like? Well, the interview process at Dev Academy is fairly simple. We don't screen you, we don't test you. It's a self-selection process. We are looking for people that are absolutely passionate about being software developers. So is the industry. If you think you want to do this, then start coding and start doing research. If you want to do this because it's well paid, you need to have a better reason. You need to want to be a highly collaborative problem solver that likes to have their mind bent each day because there's always a new problem on your plate. If you are the type of person that likes to fix things, that's a good sign because software is always broken. 99% of the time you're working on stuff that doesn't work. If it does work, usually handing it back to the client or it's live and it's not on your table. So you're always working with something that's not working. So if you like that and you like to get your head around that, then that's a good sign. But there are tons of platforms to expose you to software development. Free Code Camp's a great one. Code Academy, Team Treehouse. You can jump on Udacity or Udemy and look at these things. But do come and talk to us about that. Our interview process is much more around what would you like to know about us and how can we manage your expectations, what to expect, what people need to succeed here, the self-motivation, the passion, the ability to learn, just good work acumen. It's very, very hard to come here. But the hardness comes in the effort that you have to bring, the persistence that you have to have, we're asking to bring your whole self to this. It's not just your technical mind, it's your emotional mind as well. It's your physical, the physical aspects of taking yourself through this. So look, it's great fun, but this is not for the faint-hearted. When is the next opportunity? So you can join Dev Academy at any time. That preparation phase, you can start at any time. But we have got a cohort that is starting next week. That's full, you can't join it. We've got our next cohort starting at the end of May, so in about 10 weeks' time. That still has place in both Auckland and in Wellington. If you want to enroll in that cohort, which starts on the 29th of May, that's the boot camp, you would have to start your preparation relatively soon, in the next couple of weeks. So do get in touch with us. That cohort will fill up as well. And after the May cohort, we've got another one in mid-August. So there is another cohort in the third week of August. And that's the second to last one of the year. The last one, it will be in November, start of November. Okay. Do we help with networking, and how important is networking in getting hired? So yes, we do help a lot with networking. Dev Academy hosts a lot of meetups. All of our staff are well known in the sector as developers. I myself get out and about often with employers and talk to employers a lot. And we give you a lot of tips and tricks on how to promote yourself in the sector. Anyone that's at Dev Academy will present a lot. You will get good at public speaking, or certainly better. You will also get really good at talking in many environments. It's highly collaborative. You won't be able to be quiet and chuck your headphones on here. Mainly because the sector doesn't want that. The sector wants people that can communicate and collaborate, work with others, learn with others. So you'll do a lot of that here. And those skills that you gain will give you a huge amount of confidence in the sector. So yes, we do help a lot with networking. A lot of our students are presenting at meetups, at the JavaScript meetup, at the whatever meetup they can get themselves into. And they've got a lot of confidence in being able to do that. Cool. So next question. Most companies hire people who know C#, ASP.NET, PHP, and SQL. What's the future of Node.js in New Zealand? Why are there very few job postings for JavaScript developers? Cool. It's a really good question. Now, we used to teach .NET, and we used to teach Ruby as well. So we used to have two streams, a Ruby stream and a .NET stream. And man, it cost a lot of money to develop two streams, believe me. It almost broke us. And what we were seeing is those graduates out of the two different streams, they were going into the .NET folks were going into Ruby shops and the Ruby folks were going into .NET shops. And that kind of annoyed us, right? Like we'd spent a lot of money to develop these two streams and people weren't doing as they were told, or companies weren't. But the fact of the matter is that we teach people how to learn. And fit, that funny thing called fit, the fit between a candidate and a company, that is more important than what you know today. And I can't reinforce that enough. Companies came back to us time and time again saying, your graduates, we hire them because they can learn. It's not what they know today, it's what they can know in a few months' time. And it's what they will know in a few years' time because they can teach themselves, they can teach others. They are very resilient in that ongoing environment. So knowing C# or PHP or any technology on day one is much less important in your ability to learn whatever comes next. Most of our graduates, by far most of our graduates, are learning on day one something they've never seen before. And what we're focusing on from day one of bootcamp is how are we going to build your skills in that environment? Because if it's not on day one that you get that, it's going to be very soon that you are coming across a technology that you don't know. And your ability to get over that hump or jump that void into an ability to use that is absolutely imperative. And that's a lot about what it is to be a software developer. So we focus heavily on that. The other thing is that when we did this, we went back out to industry and said, hey, it looks like .NET and Ruby are great languages, but you're not hiring, those specific skills. What is it that you need? And they said, hey, it's this learning and so on. But also, what should we teach? And most of the sector came back and said, we all use JavaScript on our front end. It's the software of the browser, and we also see that this technology, JavaScript, is going to have a strong place ongoing as we are moving more and more towards browser-based interactions with the internet. And we're seeing even the advent of the Internet of Things, that often we are interacting with browsers and so on, and we can see Node and all of its versatility around the future. We can't say that necessarily about Ruby. In fact, I think we're seeing a lot of other options for Ruby. .NET is a fairly safe bet for your corporates because it's owned by Microsoft, but it's a good language. We're not against it in any way, but there are many alternatives there as well. PHP is a very, very common language, and behind many of your CMS based sort of technologies, things like Drupal, WordPress, and Silverstripe. And PHP is a wonderful language too. We've got nothing against it. But we have to teach something. And what we teach is agnostic. We teach so that you can work on any stack and learn something that's really valuable ongoing. And the last bit of this question is, there are very few job postings with JavaScript for JavaScript developers. Yes, but there's also, most jobs have JavaScript in them, particularly React, and we're seeing a huge amount of React in the sector, and a good amount of Angular and Ember as well. But React is something that we've chosen because it's where a lot of organizations are going to. So yeah, I think it comes back to our philosophy of, we don't teach you knowledge and information, we teach you skills. And the skills are much more valued when you're sitting in front of a hiring manager and they're evaluating whether you should join their team or not. They're looking not just at today, they're looking at that future scape and the future impact that you can make. Is our course covered by StudyLink? No, not yet. So we are very interested in our course being covered by StudyLink, and we are talking to NZQA about how to do this, but we are not there yet. Watch this space. I can't give you a timeline. I would have loved to have been by now. It might be tomorrow, it might be in a year. We just don't know. Companies with experienced people. Companies want experienced people mostly. How can someone get an entry-level job where there are less jobs for juniors? Yeah, I've sort of answered this, but I suppose I'll reiterate it a little bit. How can someone get an entry-level job where there is less jobs for juniors? So the case is giving you skills and ability so that when you are coming into an organization, you can be more resilient. You can, you need less hand-holding. You need less, I suppose, investment. Not to say that companies aren't willing to invest. It's just that companies have had to have dealt with computer science now for a long time. Now, computer science teaches you some wonderful things about algorithms and science theory and how to do research into different computer sort of systems, but it often doesn't teach you the application of that theory, and that's what the reality needs. It's much more of an engineering focus. It's much more of a doing rather than a theory. So we focus on the things that organizations need for you to hit the ground running. On day one, what do you need? You need the ability to give and receive feedback. You need the ability to communicate and empathize within a team. You need the ability to jump on the tools and know your environments and navigate. You need the ability to look at code and understand what is going on and being able to take it to bits, to disseminate the problem and build it back up so that you can understand the wide picture and the detail. These are things that we focus on hugely here at Dev Academy. These are the things that our hiring managers, that our sector, that our graduates that have been out in the market say, these are the things that are important. And we're always going back out to the sector to say, what can we teach that's better? What are we making mistakes on? What's working? What's not? And we're always iterating on that. We're always improving our program. So I think that's how we do that. You can't teach everything. I mean, hell, we've got 9 weeks. It's not a lot of time, and we are doing something quite extraordinary. The reason this is 9 weeks is a lot of the folks that are coming to us already have jobs. They already have mortgages. They already have families and responsibilities. We can't do this over 6 months, and we don't think it's necessary. In 6 months, we can definitely teach you more. But I think what we are also seeing is that companies are willing to invest in the right people. If we give people the right skills, they're very happy to do that investment. It's not a case of the tech sector not wanting to invest in new hires. I just think they're tired with with how much they have to do and with the lack of work that universities and polytechnics do. They're out of date, they haven't updated, and they're not putting in their side of the effort. So this is where Dev Academy has to step in, and this is where we've created our niche in the market to be able to provide a talent that is more work ready. It's quite different to someone from computer science, and that's where we have our competitive advantage. What's the cost of the 18-week program? The information on the website is a little confusing. Cool. The cost of the 18-week program is $11,000. Yeah, if you're having difficulty coming up with that amount of money, come and talk to us. We do have experiences with folks talking to banks, but it's up to you to approach your bank and talk to them about it. We can help you. We do realize that $11,000 is a lot of money to come up with, and that you can't get a student loan for this yet. So if you have difficulty with this, let us know. We would love to be able to help you. We do have scholarships for folks that have Māori whakapapa. So if you do have Māori whakapapa, come and talk to us as well, because we're very honoured to have received some scholarships from Te Puni Kōkiri to help Māori students into the sector financially a bit more, which is something the sector really, really needs. So yeah, it's $11,000 for the course. And yeah, come and talk to us if there's any barriers there. There's one question being typed at the moment. But I'll just wait for. Cool. Okay, so what's the timetable like each week? I'll quickly, I did go over this a bit, but maybe not in the detail. So phase 0 can take anywhere from 6 to 18 weeks. It's up to you how fast you want to do phase 0, which is the remote preparation phase. And the timetable on that is very much up to you. Bootcamp's very different. It's a 9-week set program. And each week, you have to be in class from 8:30 till 5:30. And we have absolutely full on during that time. So it's a well over a 40-hour week with teachers, and it's compulsory. And do bear in mind, you are doing work after hours as well, often on site, and but it's up to you. So the morning you're coming into Dev Academy, you are you're getting yourself a coffee or tea, and you're connecting with your cohort. Cohorts are small, around 10 to 20 people. So you get to know everyone very, very well. And at 8:45, you're doing a reflective practice. So we have a question of the day. The question might look like, what habit has created the most impact in your learning since your time at Dev Academy? And you might talk about journaling, or feedback circles, or Pi over Pi, which is another feedback tool, things like this. And you'd be able to reflect that with a small group of students, 4 to 5. And then at 9 o'clock, we have a lecture, which is much more like a tutorial or a live coding session, or a really big Q&A argument about something. But it's a topic that a teacher is introducing. Let's say it's introducing, we are consuming Google's API and embedding it into our project that we did yesterday. So a teacher would show you how to do this. You'd be asking lots of questions about this in a sort of a boardroom setting. You'd be seeing the live code on the projector, and you'd be seeing a teacher how they interacted with that code, so that you get given these tools, and then you go out and embed that in yesterday's project. You reach the roadblocks. You have different mistakes and errors, and you're pairing with someone. So you're always working with someone else, and these pairs always change. And when you're blocked, you're trying to solve it yourself. When you're really blocked, you're putting your hand up saying, hey, what am I doing here wrong? And often teachers aren't saying, that's wrong. They're saying, talk me through what you're doing here. And the student, yourself, you would be going, well, I've done this, that, and the other, and you'd find the answer yourself. And again, a teacher is taking you through that resilience training. As a software developer, you will be on your own a lot. You won't be able to ask a senior or someone that knows all the time. You'll have to figure it out. So get into the habit of doing a lot of self-reflection, a lot of self-identification, a lot of problem identification. So a teacher is taking you through the motions constantly. So that's the classical interaction on the floor. It's a very noisy environment. You're often asking your colleagues, you're often putting your hand up, and you've got a lot of quick interactions. Teachers are usually run off their feet with those sorts of interactions. Then you're doing that floor work for a couple of hours, and then we have lunch at 12 or 12:30. We have good-sized lunches for you to be able to get out and get some exercise and get some good food. And then we're back in at 2 o'clock with another introduction of a topic, and then that again followed by more floor time. At the end of each week, we have projects. These are team projects. You come together, you scope out a project using the tools that you've been using previously, that you've just learned, but putting them into real life. You invent those projects and you do them and you present them. And these are all part of your portfolio. We don't assess them as in, you got an A, a B, or C, but we assess them in your learning trajectory. Are you learning? Are you setting goals? Are you progressing at a rate that we expect? And then we're giving you specific targets to meet. If you're not meeting those things, or 9 times out of 10, you're flying and it's absolutely going well. But there is a good amount of interaction with the teacher and student in that sort of regard. There are some key moments. We have a 3-week personal project, which is right in the middle of boot camp. That is something you do on your own. It's the only thing you do on your own. And again, you present it. That's a big piece of work. It's the second biggest portfolio piece. The last group project is done in groups of 3 to 6. That is a big piece of work. It takes 8 days. It's a huge, fully functional live product. And if you look at our YouTube channel, you'll see some of those presentations being given. We've recorded them. And it's also one of the first things you would show to an employer. It's very different going to an employer saying, I can code, and saying, this is my code. And you can walk people through it. They can see how you code. They can see your personality coming through in that code. It's a very powerful way to promote yourself. And it's something that all of our graduates use. I hope that's given you some bit of an example of the timetable. The evenings are very important at Dev Academy. we have a lot of students staying in the evenings, and if they've got kids and family and so on, they're going home and doing those rituals before and after school. But the reflection and the review each evening is absolutely imperative. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of information. You also need time to go over the work we do in the day. So you can't work. You can't do anything else but Dev Academy during that 9 weeks. So it's just something I really like to reiterate. So as I said before, we've got a cohort that starts, well, you can start preparing for it anytime from now. So do enroll if you're interested. The actual boot camp, the next boot camp that starts is on the 29th of May. There is still space in both Auckland and Wellington for that. If you want to find out more about us, please contact us. If you contact hello@Dev Academy and get in touch with us, we will get back to you quickly. And you can book in a time to have a chat to me about your employability, about your background, about anything I've talked about today. Maybe it's a financial block. Maybe it's how can I accommodate this with my current commitments? Anything. Come and talk to me about it. You'll be surprised at how much experience we have had to make this program possible for people. And the fact that we do offer a ton of support to our students because we have small classes and it's a very intimate experience. So we're really, really keen to talk to folks that are passionate about what we do here. Other than that, look, yeah, we run webinars each month. If you found you didn't ask something today, hit us up via email. We can answer that question to you specifically in a one-on-one, or you can come to our next webinar. We also have Days in the Life. Now, we are going to post a comment underneath this video with the next day in the life that comes up. A day in the life gives you the ability to come on our program and test it for a day. So that's a really interesting interactive that you can come to. We run that in both Auckland and Wellington, and we will post the next date for the day in the life in the comments below this video very, very soon. I've just noticed in the live chat there is, let me see, I'm just seeing a question. Cliff Robinson's asking, what about government? Wouldn't they be obliged to advertise roles as a matter of policy? I'm not sure what that means, Cliff. Can you explain? If you're still there, I'm not sure about that question. I do apologize. Yeah. Look, yeah, if you want to email me directly with that question, Cliff, I'm not sure I could answer it with, yeah, without a bit more context. Okie dokie, folks. I'm going to finish off with a quick walkthrough of the Auckland campus because that's where I am today. So yeah, I'm going to take you on a bit of a journey. It's a bit of a, yeah, it's a little bit of an unusual campus here, but let's see how it goes. What do we got? So I am in this room. Just going to walk you through the main space for a start. I'm running Careers Week up here in Auckland. So I've got a number of students who have been practicing things like interviewing today. And this is the big space we've got here. A lot of people furiously writing their CVs, you know, investigating companies and coming in. Oh, look, we've got some interview questions on the wall as well. So pretty cool infinity screen. This used to be the site of Bride and Groom magazine, so it's a pretty funky space. So yeah, that's our main space for teaching in Auckland. Just take you up the rabbit warren. So yeah, we've got a few levels here. I'll just take you up to our second level. So this is our foyer area. We also have on both of our campuses, Auckland and Wellington, a co-working space attached. So we've got meeting rooms. We've got another meeting room down there. Bit of a calendar. We have a lot of events in our spaces, so there's always a calendar available. This is another co-working space in here. Just our front door. We'll go up to the next level. 4 levels here in total. This is another co-working space. So we've got a few folks in here. Oh, yeah. Got everyone. Sorry to intrude. Yeah, everyone's beavering away. Let's take you up to the last floor in the kitchen. Lots of beautiful sun coming in this afternoon. So we've got good kitchen facilities facilities as well. And so I mean, we have students traveling, so it's really important we've got good cooking facilities and ability to have a cuppa. Cool. So that's the space. Yeah, look, as I said before, if anyone's got any further questions after this webinar, do let me know. I'm very, very happy to answer any questions folks have got. Cool. We'll leave it there. And yeah, look forward to meeting people in person. Kia ora.